Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor and today we are taking our monthly look at the used car market with CAP HPI. Joining me is the firm's Director of Valuations, Derren Martin. Hello, Derren.
Hi, James.
Lovely to have you on, Derren. Always good to talk. And well, let's just get stuck into it then. So, what are the what's the values picture looking like for the last month?
So we've got an upward movement, which is the first time this year actually that values have gone up in a month. I think it's fair to say it's probably a little bit surprising that it's as strong as it's been. When we talked previously, it's last few months it's been that sort of plateauing of the market, very flat. So whilst we've got an upward movement, it is only 0.3%, which is sort of less than 50 quid, but it's still an upward movement, and the trade market has been particularly strong and quite upbeat.
Yeah, so that's the trademark. I mean, is that the same in retail as well?
No, I think retail's been under a little bit more pressure. There's been some pricing reductions there, not across the board though, and not massive, but there's been a bit of normal activity of cars that have been in stock for a while getting reduced. But I would say overall the retail market has been okay. It's been okay for dealers, and I think they were hoping for that off the back of sort of school holidays ending. But obviously thrown at that in with that as sort of consumer confidence, cost of living concerns. We've had obviously the Queen dying and an extra bank holiday, and that sort of 10-day period almost seemed to sort of for the nation at least seemed a bit of a strange period, but I think used car buying carried on. So the retail market, I would say, is steady but maybe slightly down, and not to the levels dealers would like it to be. But the trade market has kind of surprised us by being so robust and upbeat.
Yeah, I have to say I don't think I've ever used the word plateau quite so often in my career, but that really was so the word we were using for the past few months. I mean, is this, you know, with what you're saying, is this a time for dealers to say, oh, actually, perhaps this is a bit of a U-turn, and we need to pay attention to this? Or do you think that this is just a minor fluctuation?
I think dealers need to still be wary. The market's going up, and obviously there's low supply in the market. We haven't really seen an influx of vehicles from September yet. So there are still low supplies, and so what's sort of driving that upward movement are dealers that are kind of buying, but they're not overstocking. And I certainly think we'll see a less of a dynamic this year of dealers stocking up for what can be sort of a really buoyant January. This time last year, dealers were buying for that really, and being prepared to hang on to them. This year, there's a lot more sort of reticence to do that, and a little bit of wariness, I would say.
Yeah, well, we don't know the new car registrations yet for September, but I mean, the assumption would be that there would be fewer part exchanges and fewer cars in the park. I mean, is that an opinion you'd share?
Yeah, well, there's been a couple of million less registrations since sort of COVID's hit, and less used car transactions as well. So if you're looking at sort of late plate cars, then there's going to be a shortage of those in the market. I think September at the time sort of us talking now is about 1% or 1.2% up on last year for the car market. But obviously last year was well down on pre-COVID times. So supply levels will increase on previous months of this year, but it won't be anywhere near where it has been normally. So we're about 20% down on our on the used car volumes that we see for the trade.
I mean, with values going up just a little bit in September, I mean, this is the best September we've had for quite a while.
It's actually not unusual for values to go up slightly in September. I think what is unusual is that plateauing again that we've seen over the last few months. So you can get a bit of a dip over the summer, and then September can be relatively strong with a small movement up. You've actually got to go back to 2016 to see the last downward movement in a September. So it's not unusual for it to be strong for the month, but what is unusual is that sort of that really flat time that we've had since probably May.
Yeah. So were there any surprises? Because in terms of sector of cars?
Not really surprises, but city cars have done well. That isn't a surprise because they're cars that dealers will stock. They're reasonably priced. Yeah. OEMs aren't focusing on them in the new car market because they don't make so much profit.
Yeah.
even discontinued, quite a lot of discontinued cars with city cars now, as they focus on sort of SUVs, even small SUVs have sort of replaced them. So yeah, city cars have gone up by 1%, which is the strongest sector. All of the other sectors are relatively in line with each other at small movements up, or the main sectors anyway, the mainstream sectors. Convertibles are slightly down, but they've performed well all year. Fuel types are quite interesting. Hybrids have performed the best. They've seemed to have performed better than EVs this month. Petrol and diesel have sort of gone up on average as well. So it's really across the board a small movement up, but hybrids have kind of stood out a little bit with, I think, Nero, Lexus CT have gone up. So Toyota CHR has gone up as well. So yeah, they've performed okay. EVs have been a little bit more mixed, and we've seen some downward pressure on Tesla Model 3, gone down. Seen quite a lot of volume in the market there. So and it's yeah, so prices have been quite strong for Tesla Model 3. So we've seen a bit of a downward move there. So
Yeah.
lots of devil within the detail, really.
Yeah, I mean, the Model 3 example is interesting, isn't it? Because there's been a huge amount of supply of those cars. Well, not huge amounts of supply, but there seems to be plenty of cars to go round. Whereas a lot of EVs, particularly the Tesla Model 3 rivals, there are long waiting lists for those. So the values of those cars must be sort of going up a little bit.
Yeah, there's been some strength, I think, for sort of the ID3 and even the ID4 has been fairly level. So yeah, there's been some definite strength in certain areas of EVs, and yeah, there's lead times of up to 12 months still for mainstream brands for their EVs. You can get petrol diesel cars quicker, generally petrol now, isn't it? But you can get those cars quicker, and there's long lead times, and there's things thrown at us from the Far East again with semiconductors. They're having sort of natural disasters, like typhoons and all things like that will affect supply, and it is still quite difficult to call where the new car market's going to go. But yeah, Tesla Model 3s have been relatively easy to get hold of. They've got sort of good volume plans, and yeah, they're increasing in the used car market now. So it's generally a supply situation where you see more of those, so they come under a bit more pressure, especially if the prices have been high for so long.
Yeah, and with what you were saying about petrols and diesels, I mean, can you make a correlation to the fact that, you know, petrol prices have come down hugely, haven't they? They're still high, but they have come down a lot in the past few months. For instance, I mean, petrol cars, are they just that little bit more desirable to a wider spectrum of people now?
Yeah, I guess that would have an impact. If you were looking maybe 3 or 4 months ago, you might have thought that the prices were just going to keep rocketing, but they have come down. So you probably, you know, sort of considering getting a petrol car, whereas maybe people in the market 3 or 4 months ago were looking more at EVs, but EVs do remain expensive. So maybe that halfway house of a hybrid is a desirable purchase, especially like the cars like the CHR that have been out for a while and are at a reasonable price level.
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit of it's a bit difficult to predict what's going to happen next month now. But what's your advice to dealers? I mean, just keep on guard, because we don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, from the dealers we speak to, they all know what they're doing. They're not overstocking. They're keeping it ticking over. They're making reasonable margins. They're not reducing their advertised prices in bulk. They're doing it selectively where they need to. Buying wise, I mean, it is difficult to buy and to make the margins they've done previously, and there's differences with different sectors of the market. Maybe franchise dealers, we're playing in that sort of a 1 year old and lower, they're doing okay. If they can get stock in that market, then that's pretty good. But I would say just be wary, really. I think values will probably drop at some point in the balance of this year. That might not even be in October, but I think it will come. But there won't be a crash. There will just be a small sort of small-ish movements down as supply increases. I think some of the government measures will have helped consumer confidence to a degree, but interest rates going up won't help with sort of the monthly payment side of things, and people's mortgages are going up and that type of thing. So there's lots of moving parts in the market and in the economy, and it is really difficult to call at the moment. But I think just looking at the basics of supply going up from September activity, which might be prolonged into October and November because of long lead times. Those cars will come though, and there will be increased volumes in the market. And we have seen some rental companies defleeting recently, sort of bigger volumes in the market. So it has started to happen, but prices have held up, but prices are high still as well.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to catching up again this time next month. But for today, thanks very much for joining us, Derren.
Thanks, James.
Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye-bye.